What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Last night we saw UFC 317. There were some people who even watched Logan Paul versus Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Probably not many. I watched it on the cruise ship for my last night, and I was lucky enough to actually have a group of guys who I didn't even know come flock around me and watch the fights with me on my phone, so it was cool. I will say, I feel very bad for MMA Guru and other content creators from Europe, and even the MMA fans from Europe, because these events are just not time friendly at all in Europe. We pulled an all-nighter. I got zero sleep. I had to be off the ship for 6:30 a.m. The fights didn't get over until about 6:15 a.m. So it was a long night, but I tell you what, it was the highest of highs, but also the lowest of lows. And I feel like a lot of people are going to be able to resonate with that. So you know how we roll. We're going to have timestamps in the video. If you want to skip forward or skip back to the fight that you're most interested in, feel free. And for the sake of me not being in my own setup, I'm back in a hotel out in London. We're going to be editing this video down a little bit, so just stay patient with me. And we're going to start with the main card, just for the sake of getting straight to the meat and potatoes of everything. First on the card was Peyton Talbot versus Felipe Lima. Now, I had Peyton Talbot winning this fight. I felt like he was going to make the improvements needed from his last fight, specifically with the wrestling, and I also mentioned the mindset thing, because in his last fight, when he started to get taken down, it just seemed like Peyton got frustrated, and I didn't believe that was his best performance, right? And we saw it. He made all the adjustments necessary. His takedown defense was beautiful. Of course, the striking was definitely on par with what we've seen from Peyton Talbot in the past. He's just improving. He's looking like a total package young prospect. And I'm very excited to see what they do for him moving forward. It was kind of weird that they matched him up with Felipe Lima, with Lima being another guy that is a really good young prospect. But Lima loses no stock from that fight at all. I believe he's going to get a great fight next, and we'll see what happens for Peyton Talbot. But man, that division is shaking out really nicely. Could we potentially see in the near future a Peyton Talbot and Sean O'Malley fight if Peyton keeps on winning? It'll be really interesting to see. Moving up in the card to Beneil Dariush and Renato Moicano. If you saw my picks, you know I got this one absolutely wrong. If there's one fighter on this card that just rose through the stocks and kind of had a night, if you will, it was absolutely Beneil Dariush. I mean, he was coming off of two bad losses, the Arman Tsarukyan and Charles Oliveira. He was this close just about a year and a half ago to fighting for a title. You know, he had all these wins, and people were trying to insert Beneil Dariush in those conversations to fight Islam Makhachev. So him coming off those two bad losses and Moicano kind of paving the way, beating Jalen Turner, beating the crap out of BSD. Yeah, he lost to Islam, but that was short notice. I didn't really count it. I didn't really give Dariush much of a chance. And I got to eat crow. And you know what? We all have to eat a little crow sometimes. It's part of life, and it's definitely part of being a fan in MMA, because on any given night, anything can happen. So let's talk about what I liked from Beneil in that fight. First off, the leg kicks. Man, I guess I just forgot how well Dariush utilizes these leg kicks, these body kicks. His striking is awkward, and it works. It works really well. In the wrestling, like, you know, guys like him and Gamrot, they're going to always have a lot of success just because of how dominant their wrestling is. And we can't leave out Arman Tsarukyan in that group as well, but it'll be very interesting to see. He didn't call out anybody after his win. I think Beneil is just happy that he's back in the win column against a pretty high-profile name in Renato Moicano. I think personally that the Arman Tsarukyan fight might be the one to make. It'll be really interesting, and we'll talk about all this a little bit later. But if the Paddy and Ilia fight happens, what does Arman do? You know, so it'll be really interesting to see what happens with Dariush moving forward. Moving up on the card to a fight that I got wrong, but I'm not ready to say that I just completely messed up the pick. Brandon Royval versus Joshua Van. I thought that it was crazy that Royval was an underdog going into this fight. And a lot of my friends did too. I mean, people forget that Royval absolutely went to war with Pantoja. And we'll talk about that in a second, just the greatness of Pantoja. So I knew that Royval had that gene in him. And I was a little bit worried about Joshua Van just fighting a couple weeks ago. You know, he's extremely active, but I've mentioned in previous videos before that if you want to get a title shot, you want to get a #1 contender fight, if you want good things to happen, you better be willing to become a backup fighter. You better be willing to take a fight on short notice, because if you win, good things happen. And we've seen that time and time again. So let's get into the fight. What I saw, this was one of the best fights I've ever seen. I'm going to be completely honest. I did have Brandon Royval winning rounds 2 and 3. And I know that sounds absolutely crazy because Royval got dropped in the third. And you could give it to Van, right? But, man, it was like throughout the fight, this was the theme, where Royval was throwing long combinations, 3-4 punch combinations, landing 2 or 3 of them. He would get met with like 1 or 2 big punches by Joshua Van. So it's like, and we saw it on the punch statistics. I'm going to put them right here. We saw how busy both fighters were, but particularly Brandon Royval. And I think the stats kind of speak for themselves, but it just seemed like Joshua Van had more power than Royval did. But the thing with Royval is, I'm not going to say never, but it's going to be very, very hard to put a guy like Brandon Royval away. He's going to always be there in your face. He's going to always be pressuring. And shout out to Joshua Van for getting the decision. Like I said, I picked Brandon Royval to win this fight. I thought it could have went either way, but it is really cool to see how a guy way down in the rankings taking this fight on short notice is now going to get a title shot next. And don't you think that it's crazy that Dana White always says, hey, we're not about making these fights, future fights, until the next Tuesday when we get in these fighter meetings. But then he allows Van to go in there with Pantoja, but then when Paddy Pimblett goes in, it's a yeah. So whatever, it was really cool to see. Hey, I'm a fan of Joshua Van. I didn't mean to rhyme right there, but we did. Moving up the card to the co-main event, Alexandre Pantoja versus Kai Kara-France. This was a pick that I'm very proud of. I just didn't see a world where Kai Kara-France could win this fight. You know, they have the history from back in the day when they were coming up together on The Ultimate Fighter. And the body of work that Pantoja has put in has just been absolutely crazy. I mean, I believe last night made his 4th title defense. For some reason, to me, it feels and it felt as if Pantoja had defended the title so many more times. I don't know. But Pantoja has begun to lap that division at this point. And I think we have to start inserting his name in there with some of the guys in the top pound-for-pound rankings. If there is anyone who really should go up and fight for a second strap and do these mega fights, it is Pantoja. He should go fight Merab. Merab's got to take care of Sandhagen, but in the near future, I'm saying, like in 2026 probably, that is a fight that needs to happen, because I'm going to be honest, I just don't see anyone that's going to beat Pantoja. In the fight, he gets Kai Kara-France down and is absolutely dominating him. Like, he has wrestling like that's as dominant as some of these guys from Dagestan. And he's also got great jiu-jitsu. And the stand-up is there too. So his bag is totally, totally set. And I don't see anyone knocking him off anytime soon. I think that fight against Merab needs to be made sooner rather than later, because I believe both guys are in their mid-30s right now. Moving up to the main event of the evening. So far, I am 2-2 on picks. This fight made me 2-3. And I stated before, I'm extremely biased towards Charles Oliveira, and I wanted to see him win. The world wanted to see him win. Charles Oliveira versus Ilia Topuria. You know, it's so funny, because when I made my analysis and when I heard a few other people make theirs, it went something like this. If Ilia can get Charles hurt and get him on the ground, he's going to finish the job. But if Charles can find a way to get Ilia on the ground, he has a chance of submitting him. I didn't hear too many people not giving Ilia that chance. Like, we knew Ilia was going to hurt Charles at some point. Was he going to allow Charles to get a second life and to get back up? And he actually did very early in the fight. When he knocked Charles down and they were on the ground, I thought it was a crazy decision for Ilia to let Charles up. I thought that was going to give him second life, but man, we saw it. I mean, Charles was cut very early in the fight. I didn't even see what cut him, like what shot it was. Ilia's just so fast. And it's crazy. This is a crazy stat. He's never thrown a head kick, and I don't believe he's ever thrown a body kick in the UFC. Like, he is just all hands. But we got to see his grappling and those exchanges with Charles Oliveira because, you know, if there's one guy you don't want to go down there on the ground and get in guard with, it's going to be Charles. And Ilia went down there, and at one point, he had almost gotten a very dominant position over Charles. So I have been made a believer out of, and I am here to eat the utmost crow because I stated in a previous video that Ilia Topuria would not only never become champion of 170 at welterweight, but he would probably never become champion at lightweight because I didn't want to believe that he could get past Charles. I didn't want to believe in this guy's confidence. I didn't want to believe in his skill set. My problem with Ilia was we had never seen him go into deep waters. All of his fights have been rather quick, these flash knockouts. And after last night, I don't know if I need to see Ilia in a fourth or fifth round war because I don't know if any of his fights are going to go there unless he fights a dominant wrestler like Islam Makhachev, potentially Arman Sarukian. But I cannot confidently say right now that I see anyone beating Ilia Topuria. People are going to have to put Ilia into uncomfortable situations. And Charles just really had a bad game plan last night. I mean, Charles is going to do what Charles is going to do. He's going to walk straight through the fire, and he's going to try to land his counters and try to get a takedown on you and submit you if he can. And Ilia Topuria is just not a guy that you can really walk through the fire against because you're going to get burned. And Charles did, and I am still not over it. It's going to take me a long time to be over it. So what is the future for Charles Oliveira? We see that he's practically dying in these weight cuts. Like, his whole team's praying for him. He's freaking catching the Holy Ghost on the floor. He's so close to death. Do we see Charles Oliveira move up to 170? I like when guys move up a weight class, right? Charles has been the champion at 155. Does it suck that he got knocked out the way he did against Ilia? Yes, it does. But say Charles moves up to 170 and is able to fight a Leon Edwards or someone in the top and get a win. That's a new life for Charles Oliveira. And I just wonder if that's not the move going forward. So it was a very, very good card. And if you follow me and you're subscribed to the channel and you've seen my videos, I don't often say that cards are not good or fights are not good because I just enjoy all of them. But last night was truly good, start to finish, from the early prelims to the main event. I'm in London for one more day, and then I'm going to be back home in Louisiana, back in my house with my setup. But I wanted to make sure to put these videos out to you guys. I do try to work pretty hard to get them out. So if you liked it, make sure to smash the like button, subscribe if you like. Leave a comment.